Story 1. When quarantine lifted, we had a whole batch of kids who had just turned 21 finally able to go to bars, which was a big deal for some of us, especially in rural areas with nothing to do during winter. The number of times I had to explain that "gimme a beer" means nothing to me was baffling. It was like an entire swath of kids watched 3 episodes of Cheers and assumed real bars worked the same way. None of them were rude or overbearing. They just leaned on classic television bar tropes, naming things by general type without knowing the next step in the ordering process. For all you kids out there, please forgive us if bartenders let our faces slip for a second. It is just as odd to walk into a seafood joint and order a fish, and we who work in dive bars will definitely rib you a little for it. I once had to explain that a tab is not a physical item you open and close like a treasure chest. The face he made when he realized what he had implied was worth the shot I bought him. Story 2. A scientist who knows everything. A chemist cannot translate hieroglyphs, build a radio transceiver, identify the snake that poisoned someone, navigate by constellations on an alien world, and also make synthetic rubber from local plants. This tendency bleeds into reality, where anyone with a Doctor of Philosophy degree comments on subjects far outside their specialty and is treated as an authority simply because their title is doctor. Story 3. American kids look like they are in their 30s. I worked with someone in the United Kingdom who believed Americans matured early and would not believe me when I told her the actors' ages. Story 4. I am a criminal defense attorney. There is much incorrect information in legal procedure television shows. Many clients believe that police must read Miranda warnings before any arrest, search, or routine encounter, and that a case will be dismissed if Miranda warnings were not given. That is not true. Miranda applies to custodial interrogation. If a person is not detained, officers do not have to provide Miranda warnings. Another common misconception is that you do not have to identify yourself at a traffic stop. You must provide identification. Police officers can also order you out of your vehicle. They typically do not need a warrant to search a vehicle if they have probable cause. If police observe a crime in progress, they do not need a warrant. If there is a 911 call to a home and officers can hear fighting or see evidence of a crime, they may enter the home without a warrant. Story 5. The idea that someone can be knocked out for hours and then wake up fine, as if nothing happened, is misleading. In real life, that is a traumatic brain injury. Story 6. Anything along the lines of hot people aren't smart. Smart people have no people skills. Rich people are jerks. Average-looking people have more interesting personalities. Real life doesn't have a set number of character creation points for each person. There are hot, rich geniuses with a heart of gold, and there are also unattractive people who don't have any redeeming qualities. Story 7. If someone does not like you at first, just stalk them and annoy them until they realize they love you after all. Story 8. A guy had a crush on me in high school. I found out when he asked me out and I had to tell him I was dating someone else. He said he understood, then became fixated on shipping me and my boyfriend and cast himself as the sad outsider looking in like a John Hughes character. He even wrote a one-act play about our doomed love in college. I learned about it at a party when someone asked, "Saint Sithney, did you ever date a guy named distinctly unusual name of my high school boyfriend? Because the playwright did a play about the 3 of you for our class." It was frightening. I did not feel cherished or admired. I did not feel like Molly Ringwald. I felt more like Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. This is not the way. John Hughes was wrong. Story 9. My cousin once thought Sharknado was based on a real event. Story 10. An attractive new girl at school is made fun of for answering a question correctly in class and for wearing glasses. Story 11. Defibrillators work on a flat line by jump-starting the heart. Story 12. When I was in grammar school more than 50 years ago, I got into a fight with a classmate on the playground. He rushed at me with his fists in front of his mouth and his elbows out wide so his arms were parallel to the ground. At the time, the original Batman TV show was very popular, and that was how Batman and Robin attacked. I hit him with an uppercut to the chin and he was knocked flat on his back. Years later in high school, a group of us were sitting around talking and he said I was the one guy he definitely would not fight because of that incident. It made my day. We stayed friends. Story 13. Hanging from a building or a moving helicopter with one hand for more than a couple of seconds is outrageously difficult, even for a fit person in a controlled environment. It is therefore remarkable when an average person can catch themselves and hang on with one hand while their body flails, and even more impressive if they are holding another person with their free hand. Story 14. Crime television shows make people think that crime is increasing, but data shows the opposite. Story 15. Go visit the Ask an American subreddit and you will see many examples of this. Why do you guys use paper plates for everything? We don't. Where did you see this? Oh, a television show. Story 16. Someone posted a week or two ago about a guy asking to date both her and her twin sister at the same time. That guy was watching too much pornography because real-life siblings do not do that. Story 17. One I deal with almost every week is when someone asks how long something will take, says X amount of time, and then says you have Y amount of time. That does not work. Story 18. Gunshot, stab wound, or crash landing. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Hotel, Travago. Story 19. If you really want something and try hard enough, you will achieve it. The reality is that you only have so much ability. If you have no natural talent for writing, football, dancing, art, and so on, simply working harder will not suddenly turn you into a master. Story 20. If the girl you like isn't interested, hound her until she gives up. That's romance, baby. Story 21. I like how melodramatically the film X and Y treats the idea that anyone with autism can walk up to a whiteboard and solve a complicated mathematical equation. The scenes are underscored by swelling, dramatic music that overwhelms the dialogue, so you cannot hear what anyone is saying. Laughing out loud. Story 22. A reality show host with multiple bankruptcies is actually a successful businessman. Story 23. There is no real market for hitmen where you can simply go online and hire someone to kill another person. Story 24. When a true love shows up at a wedding, declares their love, and the officiant marries the new couple instead of the original couple, the party still must have obtained a marriage license in advance in the United States. You do not just grab an officiant or priest and suddenly get married, and you cannot simply swap one partner for another. Similarly, couples who go to Las Vegas and take part in an Elvis-style ceremony as a joke can be horrified to discover they are legally married if they had obtained a marriage license beforehand. Story 25. I visited a fire station on a college trip. One firefighter said the number of people who argue with firefighters, asking why they did not perform a maneuver they saw on television, is astonishing. When firefighters explain why it would not work in real life, those people become defensive. Story 26. Do not restrain someone who is having a seizure, and for the love of God, do not try to put a wallet in their mouth during a seizure. Story 27. I work in estates, and the number of times people ask if there will be a reading of the will is ridiculous. It is not a real event. If you are a beneficiary, you are notified by mail. Even then, the document needs to include only the parts of the will that are relevant to you. Story 28. A large proportion of Americans believe they single-handedly saved Europe from speaking German because Hollywood often inserts Americans or reframes World War II events to center on American soldiers. Story 29. My cousin actually believed quicksand would be a daily life problem, thanks to cartoons. Story 30. You know that trope in sitcoms where right before a commercial break someone delivers a one-liner, like, I'll start packing, or we'll just see ourselves out. I was a supervisor at a restaurant. One of my staff came into the back office with a stupid smile and asked, "Did the weather call for rain today?" I replied, "I don't think so." He stood there smiling and then said, "I didn't expect it to be raining so much today." I looked at him, dumbfounded. Then he dropped the act and said, "The ceiling is leaking." What? Story 31. I think David Baldacci was trolled by some Marines into thinking it is possible for a specially trained soldier to snap someone's neck with a twist of their bare hands. Story 32. 1. Slaves built the pyramids. 2. After a car crash, you should drag people out of the car immediately in case the car explodes. In reality, cars very rarely explode, and dragging someone risks a permanent spinal injury. 3. You have to wait 24 hours to report a missing person to the police. Story 33. People falling over when they are shot is common in films. Although there are circumstances where this will automatically happen, most people do not realize they have been shot immediately. However, those who do will purposely fall over because they have seen it in films. Movies do this because it is more dramatic. Story 34. I am a twin, and I can tell you that many people's only knowledge of twins comes from media tropes. When I meet new people, I am more surprised if they do not bring up a trope about twins. The most common is people who think we can tell what each other is thinking at any given time and then become disappointed when I tell them that no, we do not have telepathy. The most annoying are people who, upon learning we are twins, pinch one of us and ask if the other can feel it too. Once a girl found out I have a twin and said, "Ew, that's so scary. Twins are so creepy," and was confused when I told her that was insulting. My least favorite, by far, is people who immediately ask if we share partners or start making jokes about incest. It is disgusting. Story 35. The idea that top people in technical fields keep statistics for every aspect of their job in their heads is unrealistic. I want my doctor to leave the room and double-check drug interactions and side effects rather than rely on memory. Story 36. I live in rural England, and it was surprising when I went to university how many students who grew up in the city had outdated or odd ideas about people who live in the countryside. Nothing nasty, mind you, but examples included when my sibling had a romantic entanglement with someone I had gone to school with. My friend responded, "Oh, now the whole village will know." Another time my flatmate sent me a photo of an oddly colored egg and asked what was wrong with it. He thought I would know because I grew up in the countryside. Every time I asked them why they thought this, they said they had seen it on television. Story 37. An annoying number of people I interact with at work self-diagnose with autism because they tend to be jerks. This is frustrating because I have clients who actually have autism and need assistance with employers. Too many people say no when I ask if they have been diagnosed. I have yet to have someone say no and then want me to take their case. They are almost always abrasive and looking for an excuse not to change their behavior. Clarification. Autism does not make people jerks, and it does not necessarily cause poor social skills. Many jerks are not autistic. They are just jerks. Television and movies often use autism as an excuse for a character to be abrasive. Story 38. The idea that doctors at hospitals get to start passing out body parts just because someone has an organ donor card is false. First, they do not give you a card. Second, it is a national system. Hospital doctors do not decide where those organs are routed. I wish these medical television shows were not allowed to discuss organ donation. They are misleading and scare people. Story 39. Shaving with cold water is better. Good morning, Vietnam. Story 40. I once knew a guy who thought he could figure out someone's wireless network password in 2 tries just because he watched Mr. Robot a lot. Story 41. People think that security cameras catch everything or that if an image is blurry you can simply enhance it and it will become clearer. That is not how it works. If footage is too blurry or too small at normal size, there is usually nothing that can be done. Story 42. One of my good friends is 110% convinced The Bachelor and The Bachelorette are not scripted. Story 43. You do not wax a floor and then immediately high-speed buff it. Wax does not make the floor more slick. Its purpose is the exact opposite. Floor wax adds grip. The high speed of a buffer warms and smooths the wax, similar to heating plastic. This produces a shine and a slick-looking surface. Most of the buffers I see on television labeled as waxing the floor are actually slow-speed, side-by-side, heavy machines that use coarse black pads for stripping wax. Television shows, however, use white pads which are intended for high-speed, tag-along, lighter buffers used to heat and buff the floor finish. When I did my floors with a high-speed buffer, coworkers or visitors would pretend to slip or say, "Whoa, better put a wet floor sign down, it looks so slippery." I would just laugh. They do not have 30 minutes for me to explain floor chemistry. Why do they pretend? I do not know. This trope has bothered me in real life and on television for almost 2 decades. Story 44. Hacking. A couple of dozen scratchy keystrokes later, okay, we're into the system at the Soviet embassy. Story 45. 2 things come to mind. Mental health clinics. They are often portrayed as prisons with people in restraint vests, padded walls, and people acting unpredictably. This is far from the truth, but many now believe there are only people with mental illness in those institutions. Hackers. The idea that a professional hacker can break into any system on the fly. Many people think hacking works that way. Story 46. This might not be a specific trope, but I watch Grey's Anatomy as a medical professional because it is fast, easy to understand, and full of melodrama. The number of fans who, in the slightest, think it is an accurate depiction of a hospital or the medical field freaks me out. I thought it was an elaborate bit until I saw comments from people shocked that the medical knowledge they had gained from Grey's is not accurate. So many medical shows do this. Do not believe what you see on television. If it has inspired you, spend an afternoon taking a basic life support course. You will enjoy it and learn a lot. Story 47. Everybody just says movies do this, but in reality there is no work. 62 comments at the moment, and only one of them tells a story. Another offers a single sentence about their cousin. So that is 1.5 comments that actually answer the original poster's question. Edit. I know I did not answer the question either. Story 48. The claim that Donald Trump is an exceptional businessman is questionable. He started with a loan of $1 million from his father and with Roy Cohn's influence, and his most noteworthy business outcome was the bankruptcy of his casinos. The television show The Apprentice portrayed him as knowing everything, and tens of millions of Americans believed it. Story 49. Too many people think Sherlock Holmes was a real person. Story 50. My uncle once told me that Forrest Gump was based on a true story. He was dead serious. He was not just teasing me. Story 51. I was casually talking with a man who turned out to be an off-duty police officer. I asked him if police officers really shine a light in people's faces when they question them. He laughed and said no. Story 52. Shooting gas tanks makes cars explode. Pistol whipping knocks people out. Suspects are allowed one phone call when taken into custody. Antidotes reverse poison instantly, and characters stand up seconds later. These are every action trope ever. Story 53. Doing the right thing and being a good person is rewarded. Laughing out loud. Story 54. It's hilarious how some people take those over-the-top television or movie tropes seriously, like thinking dramatic slow-motion stares or perfectly timed entrances happen in real life. It's unrealistic but funny. Story 55. This may not completely apply, but the relationships between characters in a movie or show do not mean the actors are dating in real life. Shipping a fictional couple is fine. Shipping real people is wrong because it removes the agency and feelings of those involved. Receiving death threats for cheating on someone you are not even dating is absurd. I dated someone who shipped two well-known actors to the point that she had an edited image of them together as her phone background. I do not know if those two appeared in a production together or knew each other personally. It was very odd. Story 56. When I was diagnosed with epilepsy, I was shocked at how many people had to be told two things. First, I cannot literally swallow my tongue during a generalized tonic-clonic seizure. That is physically impossible. Second, you must never put anything in my mouth during a seizure. Popular media shows this so often that people try it in real life. Story 57. I studied martial arts from age 9 to 17, specifically Taekwondo. No, I cannot dodge bullets like Neo in The Matrix or catch poison darts like in Crouching Tiger. I have never touched a sword, but I did break a few boards. Many people growing up asked what special moves I gained from classes. I learned punches, kicks, blocks, occasional nunchucks, and takedowns. I practice 2 to 3 times a week. Learning self-defense is a good thing and I highly recommend it, but it does not automatically make you Bruce Lee. Story 58. I saw my great-niece try to call 112 after her mother passed suddenly. She watched too much television. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.